The world's best UFO picture? I really think it is this. The Calvine unknown flying object. Well, that investigation to find out what it is and who took the photograph has been going on for a while. David Clark from Sheffield Hallam University, Vinny and the Disclosure team are trying to track down the photographers to answer who were they and how did they take the picture. And Andrew Robinson, also from Sheffield Hallam University, is a photographic lecturer and is studying all the details in the print that turned up. So to complete the circle, I've been trying to look at what the flying object might be. And an amazing bit of trivia, I also went to the same Sheffield University, where I got a fine art degree in film and filmmaking. So go Sheffield team, excellent. So what do we know about this amazing picture? Well, it was apparently taken by two chefs from the Pitlochry area of Perthshire in Scotland while they were out. They probably had a compact camera. All you people who say, well, they didn't have a phone. No, it was during an era when people had compact cameras, almost definitely shooting colour print film, autofocus, auto everything, the classic Olympus trip type camera. Possibly. So, a good journalistic approach to answer any mystery is to ask these questions. Who, what, where, when, and why? And the first enormous clue comes from answering the question, when? Well, it was the 4th of August, 1990, probably about 9 p.m. What's special, Simon, about the 4th of August, 19... Oh! Yeah, on the 2nd of August 1990, Saddam Hussein invades Kuwait. By the 4th of August, Saddam Hussein's regime was assassinating Kuwait leaders. And between the 6th and 8th of August, Saddam Hussein announced Kuwait was now part of Iraq. Tensions were running really high. There were no NATO, British, American forces involved yet, but the situation needed very closely monitoring. That requirement to monitor the situation will become an enormous clue to what possibly the UFO might actually be. So at this point, I'm taking my foggy lens cap off. Thank you, Insta360 waterproof. Or maybe not. So how did this photograph turn up? Well, brilliantly, David Clark found a poor photocopy of the incident in what I call the Public Records Office. I think it's actually the National Archive in Kew. So how did their photograph become known about? Well, that story is really great. We think that the two photographers probably got their film developed by Scotland's leading newspaper, the Daily Record, who of course would love to run a flying saucer story. They probably processed the chef's colour film, and on it they had 6 negatives of the craft, which of course they were going to run as a flying saucer story. But the owner and chief editor of the Daily Record was down in London on something called a D-Notice committee. Now, you need to understand what this is. A D-Notice is a voluntary advice from the British government to general media, press, radio, television, anybody, if it comes to the attention of British government that you're about to do a story which is, in their opinion, against national interest or very much against national security, they will issue you with a D-Notice. And a D-Notice is voluntary, and usually it's taken very seriously. It's drawn up by government lawyers. You have to make a legal response, and usually it delays the transmission of a film. I worked on Panorama for many years, and quite a number of the films I worked on had these D-notices stamped on them, and the BBC had to make a response or sometimes changes, and they took it seriously. But it is voluntary. There is no punishment for a D-notice, but it could be escalated. But media take it seriously. You don't really want to contravene national security if this D-notice is issued. And certainly an owner of a large paper like the Daily Record, who ironically was actually on the D-notice committee himself, didn't want to get, into trouble, possibly closed down. I don't know. But I think what happened is his news editor told the guy in London, the paper's owner, that they were about to run this UFO story from a flying saucer that was seen in Scotland. And the owner said, why don't you send the pictures to the MOD first before you run the story? And that's what happened. And the MOD said, no way, there's something in this picture that we don't want published. And then this D-notice was issued, and the Daily Record never ran the story. The original negatives were sent probably to the MOD. The Daily Record took copies and prints, but the whole thing went dark. And we don't know why it was secret, and we don't really know what the guys saw. But for many years, the MOD regard the Calvine picture as probably the best example of an unknown flying object. You have to remember, and this is so important to know, that the MOD did something called a Condign Report. And in the Condign Report, their conclusion about flying saucers or unknown aerial stuff is that 80% are just misidentified, leaving 20% that we know what they are, but we can't tell you because they're military. So there's a vast number in the UK, in France, in the United States of stuff that your government do know what they are, but they don't want to tell you. And that's what happened in the Calvine incident. For some reason, the MOD know what the object is and pulled it. To this day, it's still secret. David Clark says it was possibly an error that a bad photocopy of the original picture was left in the National Archive file. And when he asked about it, he was told, oops, don't mention that one. I think it just slipped into some file somewhere. But amazingly, Craig Lindsay appeared. Craig Lindsay was the RAF liaison officer in Scotland that probably the Daily Record sent the prints to. And it was Craig Lindsay who liaised with the MOD in London and their photo reconnaissance branch. And Craig Lindsay kept a copy of the picture. And brilliantly, David Clark tracked down Craig Lindsay, who said, I've got a copy of the original picture signed by the photographer. Fantastic. Here's David Clark and Craig Lindsay when Craig pulled out the picture from a file that he'd kept since 1990. It's brilliant. But and to Andrew Robinson. Andrew is a photographic expert also at Sheffield Hallam University, and he analysed Craig Lindsay's picture and revealed it isn't the original, but it's a copy of the original. Do you remember if Wee Jimmy was in the football team and it was in the paper, you could go down to the newspaper office and say, oh, can I have a copy of Wee Jimmy that you printed in the paper? And the newspaper would take the original print and take a photograph of it and run you off a copy, which they no doubt sold to you. That's what happened in this case, but somebody really, really messed up. And it's the bane of everybody's life. The photograph copying machine was badly serviced, probably. So it works by you put a print down and you take a picture of it and it runs off another copy which needs processing. But it's critical that it's in focus, and the print that was run off is blurry. For some reason, there's no detail. The flying saucer, the airplane, the trees, the barbed wire, and the grain of the picture are all uniformly out of focus, meaning it was just a bad copy, blurring some of the vital details that us investigators need to know about what it really was. But Andrew Robinson's done amazing work, and in today's film we're going to meet Andrew and he's going to talk about some of his work. He's just released a new report which I will try and share with you. At present it's a PDF file. Hopefully by the time I publish this film there's a web version that I can share with YouTube. If not, you just have to get in touch with Andrew to get it. So what have I got to do with any of this? You know, a goat farmer in France. Well, my real interest in this story is not the photographers, not who, where, when, and why it was taken, but what? What's the gorilla in the room? What's the flying object? It's obviously not a manned aircraft. It's no aircraft type that we know. As I said before, it's one of three things. It's a trick fake photograph. It's an unknown military, because it's not civil vehicle, or it's a flying saucer from the planet Zog. So viewers, what do I think it is? Well, here's my best guess. What do you think of this? Saddam Hussein invades Kuwait and the situation is very volatile. There needs to be a monitoring device above Kuwait to actually look at what's going on. You need a long loitering type of drone or a low Earth orbit LEO satellite doing synthetic aperture radar surveillance, for the CIA, for the whoever. But the ultimate solution would be to have a fixed flying device above flight levels that could long linger over Kuwait and actually see what's going on. Maybe that's what the Calvine device really might have been. My quest is to answer that. And you guys at Patreon have been really helpful. A number of you have gone down the route of it's a fake picture and you think it's a wee reflecting rock in a lake. I think that's quite good. I personally think it's a secret military aircraft, and some people still think it's a flying saucer. So I separately have been weaseling away looking at the object, and David Clark, Vinny, and Andrew have been separately weaseling away to find the photographers, and our two teams have become somewhat separate. So David Clark reached out to me, thanks David, and said that Andrew and himself and I should get together and we should share our knowledge. So that's what you're going to see in this film. It's the first time that I've actually ever spoken to David Clark or Andrew, and vice versa. The Calvine UFO photograph is probably the best ever photographed unknown flying object. We really need to sort out what it is. Well, gentlemen, this is fantastic. Andrew Robinson, David Clark. Let's talk about Calvine. I've actually got a model of it up there. I have it. I can't really see it. I'll go and get it. I have it as.
Is that the one that advertised on eBay? Is it?
Oh no! I should. That would be a really good idea. I've got a 3D printer. I should make a few. No, I kind of. I have a milling machine. I kind of milled a diamond out of. Yeah, exactly.
That's the one on eBay. It's that one there. Yeah.
Oh, right. No, mine's
a guy called Adam. A guy called Adam.
I'll go get it. Hang on.
Yeah.
We can all show our Calvine memorabilia. Right. Very good.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
It was a prize for anybody who actually solved the mystery of what the it is.
So, what do you think it is?
Oh, well, all right. Well, first of all, let me say really that we wouldn't know of any of this if it wasn't for your sterling work and your approach to tracking down the people and the photographer and photographers and Craig Lindsay is sterling. But my kind of real focus, not to step on you on that, is very much wondering what the object is, the girl in the room. And also the clue from the Harrier. I'd like to talk specifically to Andrew about some of the details on the Harrier right now, but what do I think it is? Well, of course, I don't think anything. I'm a goat farmer in France, but there's three possibilities, people. It's a fake photograph, which I think is unlikely, but it could be not necessarily fake, but it could be a trick photograph.
Yeah.
Possibility number one. Possibility number two, it's an unknown aircraft type, probably military, certainly not civil, but that we don't know anything about. And three, which is the least likely, is it's a flying saucer from the planet Zog. Well, we can't even go there until we've eliminated the first two. And I think you've done excellent work, Andrew, in validating Craig's
print. I think all the photographic analysis of the emulsion and everything that you've done. I mean, it's a genuine print of something. It's probably a copy, and I kill the person. I kill the person with the mini lab who made the copy out of focus. Oh, yeah, I'm sure it wasn't out of focus.
Yeah.
Do you think it's unlikely, isn't it? I mean, yeah. I mean, it was probably an amateurish camera that had it, a focus that would have got something that far away sharp. But so the resolution somehow is lost, which is very, very annoying.
And the other 5 prints would be nice as well, wouldn't it?
Yeah, sure. I've interviewed Stu Little a number of times, and he can't help on that. I mean, he remembers maybe seeing them, but we don't know.
I don't know.
But we do, yeah.
Yeah, we've talked. Well,
No. The whole thing is mired in problems. But David Clark, you asked me what is it? It's a military craft.
Yeah.
It's a secret military craft. The play I like, just like you guys doing who, what, where, when, and why, right? And there's 2 enormous clues from the picture is where and when. Where it is in the southern Scottish Highlands military operational area. That flight zone is cleared from surface to high altitude for this type of testing. It wasn't done on the White House lawn. It wasn't flown over the Henley Regatta. It was flown in a military operational area. So that points to it being not civil. Also, it's a military project that covered the jet anyway. And when it's obvious. I mean, it was incredibly, relevant date with the invasion of Iraq.
Absolutely. What interests me is I think there is a mystery in that what happened to the two lads who took the photograph. How
sure.
is it they took it to a newspaper and the newspaper didn't publish it and the people at the newspaper can't explain that either. That to me is the interest and the mystery, because despite all the years we've put into this, no one seems to have a satisfactory answer to that. And why on earth would this be so secret that 34 years later they still won't tell us what's going on with it?
The story of the guys and the photographer and the D-Notice and the Daily Record is fascinating, but I'm a nosy Parker and want to know what the secret military craft is.
Yeah.
So
good. There's a lot. I mean, the UFO building, they really home in on this thing about it was silent. I've been up there where supposedly it was, and I've seen typhoons zooming overhead.
Yeah, they're silent.
I heard absolutely nothing until they were on their way to Lozimuth, and
right.
You were watching something like one of these platform radar absorbent ones. I don't know what sort of noise it might make, but if there's a bloody Harrier jet circling around it, you're going to hear a Harrier jet, aren't you? Not whatever noise this thing is making.
No,
very soft.
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
Kind.
What I'm going on, if we need to know the dates, you're absolutely right. But what I'm going on is the 2 British Airways Harriers based at Wharton don't have, because they didn't need it, they didn't have the radar fitted to the vertical fin, so it makes it like a straight fin, whereas all the Fleet Air Arm, all the American ones, had this box sticking out halfway up the vertical tail.
Yeah, but bear in mind that apparently one of the photographs shows a second Harrier distant, in the distance.
Oh.
So it's not impossible that had some kind of radar attachment.
Yeah, as you can see there, you were quite right, Simon.
Yes.
The actual grain of the print that we have is out of focus. So if it was indeed produced on a mini lab, which is my belief, then the mini lab, especially when they were doing larger enlargements, they weren't great machines. And so this is probably slightly out of focus when it was printed as opposed to when it was shot. But you can see very little. There could be a box there, possibly. There might not be a box there. It's really hard to see. And the other thing that's interesting on the Harrier is just the lower wing having this kind of strange lighter blur to it, which some people said, well, it might be reflecting the light, or who knows. But that is slightly odd as well, the lower blur. I mean, I'm not an aircraft specialist, but I wouldn't be able to say that it's definitely a Harrier. But that's what the MOD, that's the conclusion the MOD came to in their
it looks
reports.
very Harrier to me, but you're right. It would be good to have a definitive aircraft spotter to say it.
Yeah.
Or you can even go with people who watch my channel who say it's a man rowing a boat across a lake. You see him. So there's the man sitting, and then the lighter wing is his oar in the water, and and he's heading. Don't. Yeah, I mean, it's like, it's good.
Simon, out of interest, do you know where that story came from? Because that was circulating after David's first thing in the Sunday Mail on the 13th of August 2022. But yeah, because there's been a lot of discussion about it being a reflection and whether that's a man in a rowing boat or not.
Well, the Rocky Pond Brigade, as I call them.
Well,
yeah.
Well, and they're very, very vehement and adamant. I, with my Patreon account, two of my patrons actually drove up to Perthshire and went round every loch and reservoir looking for wee triangular rocks, but they didn't find any. But they raise a point that Andrew can answer, and that is, and in fact I know what the answer is because I've just read your latest report, Andrew, and it's fantastic. Here's the question, Andrew Robinson: why is there no horizon line visible in the photograph, or is there some horizon?
Yes, that's a good question. I mean, I believe that you can see landform in the distance behind the fence.
Okay.
But it's taken from quite a low angle looking up, my belief is.
Okay.
And so that's why the horizon is quite low in the picture. But I do believe that there is a horizon line, but obviously the further away that landscape is from the camera, you get this kind of cloudiness, this mist. It's not mist, but the density reduces, and it's very hard to define. Now, I know that some people have challenged my interpretation. They say, no, it's the fence, it's a wire on the fence, and what I'm seeing as maybe being trees, they're saying is kind of something hanging from the fence. But I think if you look at the high resolution version, not the ones reproduced in the newspaper, if you look at a high resolution copy of the photograph, or you look at the original photograph, there is a difference in focus between what's on the fence and what I believe is beyond it. And I think you can see tree forms and possibly a pointy hill in the background, which
lines up with where we think it was taken, right?
Well, I'm not sure. The main problem with the location, I mean, Giles Stevens, who's worked with David, has done a lot of work on the ground looking at locations. But the main problem for me, and I think we found somewhere which is almost right if you can just get the camera low enough. And that photo's in my report. But the problem is, even if you can get the photo low enough, is that I'm sure there's barbed wire on the fence, and Giles believes very little use of barbed wire in the area around Calvin.
Yeah, that's good, isn't it? Yeah.
And
it would probably be right.
And there's these different types of fencing. Most of the fencing in the Calvin area is this deer fencing, which is really high fencing with rabbit netting low down to enclose deer. And the fence that's in the Calvin picture is a lower level fence, what would be called in that area of Scotland a sheep fence.
Totally sheep fence.
And around Calvin, there's very little sheep fencing.
And also, there also is, it fits with the description that Craig remembers the guy telling him, that the part of Calvin, and I'm pretty sure the first time I spoke to him, he did say to me that they'd crossed the river, which is the River Spey, I think, which is exactly what you do. And the only way you can, there's only, as Giles says, there's only two real routes you can go, which is the one of which is the General Wade Road, which I think is where they did the Channel 5 reconstruction that Nick Pope subsequently used. And then there's the one that we think it is. You cross the river, you go up this thing, and you go to, what's it called? Struan Point. which is where the
Right.
fence is.
Antimpan is called. Antimpan is
Okay.
the peak. Well, it's not really a peak, but it's
Now,
Yeah,
if
it's
you follow
distinctive
the
shape.
description of what they're supposed to have seen and what happened is they walked through, they went into a group of trees, I think, over a fence, and then it was there above them, and they were so shocked and surprised they leaped back over the fence and fell on the ground and started snapping away, which would explain the weird angle of it.
Yeah. Right.
yeah. And
Andrew, what kind of camera did they use? Is there any way of
no, it's really
taking?
not.
No, we don't know.
No, we don't know.
I mean, it was, but we don't even know if it was a 35mm camera.
we don't.
No,
To be
we
honest,
don't know.
we
It could be
don't know.
anything.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
quite a few people have kind of said in response to David's latest article, well, oh yeah, two guys walking up in the Highlands and they've got a camera with them. Yeah, but yeah, I carried a camera everywhere I went, and a lot of my
Right.
and I had an XA2, an Olympus XA2, which would slip in your back pocket. And at that point, there were a lot of compact cameras that were reasonable quality that you could carry around with you. So I don't think it's surprising that they had a camera. I think, given that period of time, you did get cartridge cameras with either 110 or 127 film in them, didn't you? But it's definitely not shot on a 110 because that will give you really high grain. Because I used to use a 110 camera, and the negative was so small you got high grain. So it's not 110.
Sure.
It could be a 127 cartridge camera, but they were really redundant by 1990. So I think it's got to be an SLR, and you could get pretty cheap SLRs at that point, or probably a point and shoot compact camera with either a 35, a 50mm fixed lens, or a short zoom, probably.
Yeah. Yeah, I will cut now to the classic David Bailey advert. For
Trip could be an Olympus trip. Yeah,
an Olympus trip.
Spotted anyone famous? Not exactly stars on Sunday, is it? Oh, new camera?
Olympus AF10.
Bit of a purist myself. Old school. Oh. Oi, Elvis, this way, big smile. Blooming micro celebrity.
Never miss a shot with autofocus.
Oh, no focus, hocus pocus.
Auto flash, wind, load.
Oh, yes. All very well if you don't know your ASA from your elbow. Stone me! It's you! Of course! You still with the tremolos?
Olympus AF10. No more snap decisions.
How do you think, this is a question to both of you, that we can, is there any progress that can be made with this from now? I mean, the reason I wrote that second Mail article was simply because I just wanted to give it one more shot to see if we could wrinkle someone out who remembered something about it from the time, but it's not brought anyone with any significant information apart from this chap who claims he knows who worked with them. Now, I don't know whether he's telling the truth or not.
Right.
All I can say about him is he contacted me with the information about them being chefs in a hotel before Craig's story about talking to a chef in a hotel. So I do actually think he is telling the truth.
We keep pressing on. I would like to say that certainly my only focus of interest is in the Harrier and the gorilla in the air in the room, which is the craft.
Yes.
I have no possible way of finding the photographers. I'm interested in press. I'm interested in D notices and things like that. But I'll leave that up to you guys, and also your team of people on the ground in the Calvine area have done excellent work. But if I can just chip away at anything which I find or somebody tells me about the craft, I'm fearless in doing that kind of research.
The Harrier pilots we were talking about. I mean, most of these people they're on sort of these forums, aren't they, where they talk about stuff that I'm sure there's even a Harrier pilot association where they're all chatting about things. I mean, surely getting something on there and saying, does anyone know about this? Who might have been flying these Harriers?
Sure.
That
I mean, from listening.
Yeah, the Harrier thing. Sorry, Andrew. Just one thing, and that's I think I might have well got this information from you, David, and your team. Is that I was contacted by a Harrier pilot who either mirrored what you guys have said, or he told me, is that the British never flew Harriers on Saturdays.
Yeah.
Do you know that story?
I do know that story.
Yeah. And he said, no, we do Monday to Friday for flight testing. We never fly them at the weekend. Yeah. So the Saturday date makes it very odd.
But I'm pretty sure, it might be on one of the tapes you've listened to, Andrew, that the guy I was talking to said that there was a whole stash of Harriers, as he described it, at some base called, is it Luffington or something? In somewhere in the English Midlands, because I was saying, well, where did this thing come from? Because I went through all the different squadrons we'd looked at, and he said, oh yeah, but there was the Harriers at such and such an air base. I think it was RAF North Luffington or something. He said, have a look there.
Oh, I'll look in. Thank you. Right.
I'm not sure it was.
Yeah, sorry, Andrew.
No,
what were you going to say, Andrew?
We've heard that no fly on Saturday for the RAF, not necessarily BAE, but the RAF.
No, exactly. That was my point.
Yeah, but certainly the RAF, and that comes from Craig and comes from other people, doesn't it? It's a Saturday. It can't be us. It's got to be somebody else. What was I going to say? I can't remember what I was.
No, well, I independently verified that with a Harrier CFI flight training officer said it wasn't one of ours because it was a Saturday. I thought that was hilarious. So let's keep going.
All I was going to say was that from listening to David's interview tapes, these guys do want to talk about it. They do want to talk about it, and they'll go as far as they can. That's the impression I get. And they do know about it, But if you get the right person in the right place, that's why, David, I do think it's still worth doing it. You were saying, what's the point?
No.
Anything loose yet? I think it is slowly shaking things loose, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think what you've been saying, Simon, is where I'm at mentally with what this is. That's what makes sense to me. If it's not a faked. Something faked in front of the camera, then it's some kind of drone type device. And I've been doing a bit of research on these unmanned companions, and that seems to fit perfectly in terms of when it was happening and that. So what you'll find,
it could be a fake. I mean, and when I just originally wrote it on my blog, that was what I concluded, because none of the details make any sense. So the obvious explanation is that it's a fake. That's why the newspaper never ran the story in the first place, because they knew it was a fake because they confessed or whatever.
Yeah, you can hang it on a string, but certainly the photograph's not fake. It's gone through a process of. It obviously was looked at by the MOD identification people, and you can have a history of how that print went through its life.
Yeah.
And it's obviously photographic. I don't know.
I mean, we know it went to Jarek, and we then were told that after the Jarek thing, and this is in the paperwork, isn't it, Andrew? It went somewhere else. Yeah. And my contact wouldn't tell me. He said it went to another agency in Britain that does photographic analysis, but he wouldn't say where. So that will be interesting to work out who that was who looked at it the second time before it went over to the US.
But as a photographer, when I'm looking at any photograph from the history of UFO photography, normally I can find an explanation for it. Whether it's McMinnville or whether it's Alex Birch or whoever it is. And this is the one that, there isn't an easy explanation other than it's something flying in the sky.
No, it's a rock in a pond, Andrew.
It's a rock in a pond. Yeah, obviously. Well, let's keep on going, gentlemen. It's good to touch base with you. And excellent. Good. And my greetings to my home university city of Sheffield. That's great. Great.
Oh, that was fantastic. It was so good that David and Andrew and I got together to actually talk about the world's best record of an unknown flying object. What do you think it is? A really big request. Are you a Harrier pilot? Please get in touch. Tell us about the history of adding that rectangular radar to the vertical fin. When was it fitted? And very specifically, Jeff, I don't know your name, do you work at the Wharton Flight Center? Do you have logbooks from the 1990s? Did you fly up to Calvin on the 4th of August 1990 in the British Aerospace Harriers? Please, 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 the press officer at BAE Systems, get in touch. Actually go over to the flight department and look at their logbooks. I think you've still got the 2 Harriers. The aircraft themselves have logbooks. The flight department have this information. Please share it with us, because it's really going to help either eliminate British aerospace from this question or confirm that somehow you were involved in this amazing incident. The world's best unknown flying object story. Come on, British Aerospace, get with it. The truth is out there and we all want to know.